do you then state, because you have mentioned that there are about 100 OMCs registered, and these are licensed
plus and
companies,
minus,
yes, that could be doing the same. So are you then saying with the debt that is owed, there's only a handful of out of the hundreds that are owed this money,
absolutely,
and are the majority not even Zambian owned?
Absolutely. That debt, break it down. You find that there are just 3-4 major OMCs that are owed. Why? Because the level playing ground. So if we go back slightly, let's go back a little bit. 9th and 10th National Development Plan speaks to the fact that, you will have 50% supplied by the Zambian OMCs, and the other 50 could be supplied by a major. Now, that policy was a deliberate policy to empower the locals. That is number one. Though there is a lacuna in the law because it does not specifically speak to the fact that the Zambian, the 50% must be compliant to what ZPPA describes as a local institution, a local OMC. So if you're a foreigner, you come here, register your company, you are treated as an OMC. These are issues that ZPPA was supposed to pick up a long time ago. Because it's a legal framework, it's there. But for some reason, you have people who come and register a company. When you argue, they'll tell you, no, they are not. Are they not Zambians? They are registered as Zambians. But that lacuna within the law must be rectified to speak to the locals. We have said it before. We had a crisis at some point, I think about 3-4 years ago, where majors on the market withdrew from the market because the Zambian government had owed them a lot of money, and so they couldn't supply. And this is how we came up with the import permits or waivers, whichever you call it. All right. So that was to allow the locals to be able to build capacity in them to bring in those 3-4 trucks, and that year we managed and supplied over 200 million. We met the national demand. Small entities, Zambians, invested into that market, and we're able to build up the capacity. And what we're saying is that we've tried it before. We can do it now. All we need is a political will. What is it? We've got banks that are very, stringent to issuing instruments, because there are no direct policy that speak to support the local OMCs. Now, it's very clear before we jump to this, that if you do not, any country thrives on, energy, fuels. You can't, because the cost of living is technically affected by the cost of fuel. Mm-hmm. If you have high costs of production, prices of milling will go up. If you've got high cost of producing electricity goes up. So if you manage energy, if you manage the fuels, if you manage this part of the energy, then you are driving the economy. It is easier to have a trickle-down effect to the country.
Dr. Mubanga, let's end with this. Do you feel it's been better, or is it better for OMCs or even the people involved, even the stakeholders purchasing this, when government had subsidies on fuel, or now with the removal of subsidies, especially now that you're coming and declaring and demanding, actually, that government gives clear guidelines into the repayment of this $800 million that is owed?
Well, first of all, like I've said, the burden really was not for this government. It was reliant on the previous regime. To come and dismantle that 800 million really takes in a lot. Obviously, this is what we see government is doing, trying to restructure data and things like that. But I think that what is critical is that much as those attempts are put in place, can we have a motion in Parliament to move the minister to react to the report of the Auditor General by members of Parliament? Because what's important is, why are we still having this gap when we're trying to resolve a problem? Because if you don't move it in Parliament, it will be rhetorics. It will be a story told. We had moved in, we had put up a complaint, it ended up into books and writings. That's what Zambians are good for.